My name's Ava. I'm 35, and I guess if you asked anyone in my family who I am, they'd probably say something like, "Oh, Ava? Yeah, she's the reliable one. Not the favorite, not the loud one, not the prodigy. Just the one who remembers birthdays, files her taxes early, and sends thank you notes without being reminded." I work as a forensic accountant in Seattle. I live alone in a condo I bought myself. No husband, no kids, no drama. Just clean spreadsheets and predictable routines. I've always played the long game. Be steady, be useful, be there when they need you. And they did need me. A lot more than they'd ever admit out loud. My family, my parents Luis and Carmen, and my younger brother Julian, they're what people might call tight-knit, though I'd describe it more as theatrically close. Always performing warmth for outsiders, but brushing every uncomfortable truth under the rug like it's a crime to acknowledge real tension. Growing up, it was always clear. Julian was the sun, and the rest of us just orbited him. He was charming, reckless, and had that way of making even his screw-ups look like adventures. Dropped out of college twice, blew through 3 jobs, and when he finally crashed and burned trying to launch some app that barely worked, he moved back home like nothing happened. My parents welcomed him like a war hero returning from battle. Meanwhile, I'd been the quiet scaffolding. I paid my way through grad school, bought my own car, and helped cover my parents' insurance bill when my dad got laid off for a year. I even co-signed the loan on the car Julian still drives, though he somehow forgot that part when telling his friends it was a gift from Dad. But you know what? I never made a fuss. I told myself that being overlooked wasn't the same as being unloved. That if I just kept being helpful, kept showing up with open hands and a full wallet, one day I'd feel like I truly belonged. Not just as the emergency contact or the holiday chauffeur, but as someone they actually valued. That illusion shattered last spring. It started with a phone call from my mom. Her voice was dipped in honey the way it always is when she wants something. "Ava, sweetheart," she said, "I have wonderful news. Julian and Vanessa are getting engaged." I offered the expected congratulations, even though I'd only met Vanessa twice, both times through brief, curated dinners where she'd smile at me like I was part of the furniture. Mom's tone softened. "We're planning a celebration dinner, something really special. A rooftop garden, live string quartet, champagne bar. Vanessa's family is quite traditional, you know? We want to make a good impression." I could already feel where it was going. "If it's not too much trouble," she added, "would you mind helping us book the space? Just put it on your card for now. We'll pay you back, of course." Of course. And just like that, I agreed. Again. Maybe some small part of me still hoped that if I handled things perfectly, they'd finally see me as more than the background support. Maybe this time I'd actually have a seat at the table. But what I didn't realize then was that they'd already decided where I belonged. And it wasn't next to the champagne. The night of the engagement dinner, I arrived right on time. 7:07 sharp. I'd picked out an emerald green silk dress. Subtle, elegant, and not too flashy. My heels were polished, my hair pinned neatly, and I wore a simple necklace Mom had given me years ago. I even brought a bottle of vintage champagne I'd had tucked away for a special occasion, and a handwritten card embossed with Julian and Vanessa's initials. The restaurant was stunning. A glass-walled rooftop that shimmered under strings of fairy lights, with soft classical music floating from a live quartet tucked into one corner. White hydrangeas and eucalyptus leaves filled the air with a crisp floral scent. The city skyline glittered beyond the glass. It felt like a wedding already. A hostess in black led me upstairs. "Private party?" she asked. I nodded, smiling politely. She guided me to a curtained section, paused, and gestured inward. "There you go," she said with a practiced smile. I took a deep breath and stepped in. There they were, my entire family. My parents in their best evening wear, Vanessa's family in designer suits and dresses, Julian laughing with a whiskey glass in hand, his other arm wrapped possessively around Vanessa's waist. The place was buzzing with conversation, toasts, clinks of cutlery, and polished manners. No one turned when I entered. I waited a beat. Julian finally spotted me. His grin curled, smug as ever. "Oh, hey," he said, barely glancing at the bottle I held. "Glad you could make it." Then, he pointed. "Sorry, this table's for family only," he said, loud enough to turn a few heads, gesturing toward a lone folding chair near a small server's station, wedged between a utility cart and a trash bin. I stared at him, thinking it had to be a joke, but no one laughed. My mother gave me that tight-lipped smile she always used when she didn't want to get involved. My father raised his glass and gave me a small wave, like I was some passing acquaintance. Vanessa didn't even look up. I stood there, the bottle suddenly heavy in my hand. My throat closed. I wanted to say something, anything, but my words felt lodged behind the weight of 1,000 past slights. So I walked slowly to the folding chair, set the champagne bottle down beside me, and sat. I didn't even take off my coat. A waiter appeared a minute later. "Are you at the party?" he asked kindly but clearly confused. I nodded. He didn't press, just poured me a glass of water and walked away. For the next 2 hours, I sat alone. I watched my brother give a speech about love and family. I watched my mom tear up when Vanessa called her the mother I always dreamed of having. I watched gift boxes being passed around, photo flashes, and the kind of laughter that only comes from people who know they're at the center of the celebration. No one looked my way. Not once. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. But I was wide awake. So when the bill came, I noticed immediately. The waiter walked to the main table, bill folder in hand, paused, and then looked down at the credit card on file. He glanced around, then turned and approached me. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently. "The total for the event is $3,650. Should I run the same card for the remainder?" Heads turned. Forks froze midair. Julian raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yeah," he said casually. "Ava's got it." And that's when something in me, quiet, solid, and long overdue, decided to stand. I smiled, slow and measured, my voice calm. "Not my table," I said, just loud enough for everyone to hear. "I was told this was for family only." You could feel the shift in the room, like a dropped glass that didn't shatter, but still made everyone flinch. Julian's smirk flickered, just for a moment. Then he laughed, too loudly. "Come on, Ava," he said, waving his hand like I was overreacting. "Don't be so dramatic. It was just a joke." A joke. That word hit like a slap. My mother cleared her throat, trying to reassert control. "Let's not blow things out of proportion," she said with a brittle smile. "Ava, sweetheart, just let them run the card. You know how these things go." I looked at her, then at my father, who had suddenly become very interested in his empty glass. Vanessa's family sat frozen, polite confusion beginning to melt into discomfort. And Vanessa, she still hadn't said a word. She looked down at her napkin, smoothing it like it held the answer to all this awkwardness. The waiter stood there, unsure, holding the leather check presenter like it was a live wire. "I didn't eat," I said calmly. "I didn't drink. I wasn't invited to the table, so I won't be paying." More silence, this time heavier, real. Mr. Lang, Vanessa's father, finally spoke. "Excuse me," he said, his voice sharp and clear. "Are you saying you organized this dinner, paid the deposit, and weren't given a seat at the main table?" I met his eyes. "That's correct." He looked at Julian, then at my parents. His expression was something between disbelief and contempt. "You sat the person who paid for this entire evening? Near the trash?" Julian let out a breathy scoff. It's not that serious. Mr. Lang's face darkened. It's exactly that serious. My mother jumped in. Let's not make this into a scandal. Ava's just sensitive. She always. I cut in, my voice still calm, but no longer quiet. No, what I am is tired. And then I turned to the waiter. Cancel the card on file. I'm not covering anything else. The waiter hesitated, then gave a stiff nod and stepped away, bill in hand, retreating like someone had just unplugged the music. The quartet in the corner had gone quiet. The sound of the city through the glass seemed louder than before. I reached down, picked up the unopened bottle of champagne, and stood. Julian stood too, as if puffing up might make him look less small. You're seriously making a scene over a chair? I tilted my head. This isn't about a chair, Julian. This is about years of being told I was loved, while being treated like I was optional. He flushed, red crawling up his neck. You always do this, he snapped. Act like you're the martyr. Like you're the only one who sacrifices. I smiled. Small, tight, and all edges. I don't act like anything. I just finally stopped pretending I'm okay with being invisible. Then I walked toward the elevator. Past the chandeliers, past the perfect centerpieces, past the table that was for family only. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't look back. The elevator never came. I didn't wait. I took the stairs instead. 7 flights in heels, every step echoing like punctuation. Not angry, not crying, just done. Outside, the Seattle air hit me sharp and cold. I unfastened the clasp on my coat, let it fall open, and exhaled for what felt like the first time that night. I thought that would be it. My big moment. My line in the sand. I'd expected some awkward silence in the group chat. Maybe a half-hearted apology text from Mom. Maybe Julian would laugh it off like he always did and find someone else to bankroll his next performance. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. Hours later, back in my apartment, still in that emerald dress with the champagne bottle unopened on my counter like a question mark, my phone buzzed. Julian. Seriously, Ava? You couldn't just pay the check and talk to me after? Then Mom. You embarrassed us in front of Vanessa's entire family. Was that your goal? I stared at the screen for a long time, unread messages piling up. Then a call came in from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hi, a quiet voice said. It's Vanessa. My heart didn't race. It didn't sink. It just waited. I know we haven't talked much, she continued, but I need to ask you something. I stayed silent. Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the venue, the flowers? I let out a slow breath. Yes. There was a pause on the other end. The kind of silence that doesn't come from shock, but from pieces starting to click together. They told my father you offered, that it was your idea, that you didn't want to be at the main table because you were uncomfortable in big groups. I sat down on the edge of my couch. I never said that. I was asked. I said yes. I never expected a thank you. But I definitely didn't ask to be seated next to the trash. She exhaled. He's furious. Your dad? Yeah, she said. He feels like a fool. Said he would have never agreed to this venue if he knew the groom's family was offloading the cost onto someone they treated like an afterthought. I didn't say anything. And now, she continued slowly, he's saying if this is how they treat their own blood, he needs to rethink what I'd be marrying into. Another pause. I'm not calling to stir things up, she added quickly. I just thought, you should know. Thanks, I said, and I meant it. We hung up. I sat in the dark, listening to the soft hum of my fridge and the far-off sounds of late-night traffic. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the backup plan. I didn't feel like the financial safety net or the background character. I felt seen, not by Julian, not by my parents, but by the one person they were trying so hard to impress. And that was the first crack in their performance, a performance that very soon would begin to fall apart. I didn't respond to any of their messages. Not Mom's guilt-laced texts, not Julian's shallow demands, not even the string of missed calls that started showing up the next morning. But I didn't have to. The universe responded for me. 2 days after the dinner, the family group chat, usually a chaotic flurry of birthday memes, low-res food pics, and Happy Friday messages from Aunt Sophia, lit up like a Christmas tree. Mom, Ava, please call me. We need to fix this. Julian, I messed up, but you need to help me fix it with Vanessa's family. You owe me that much. Dad, this is getting out of hand. Just apologize and let's move on. I didn't reply, because it wasn't about the dinner. It was never just about that chair by the trash bin. It was about years of being the quiet support beam holding up a house that never once looked down to check if I was cracked or exhausted. I'd been the one who covered emergencies, bought gifts when Julian forgot, drove 6 hours on Christmas Eve when Mom claimed Julian was too emotionally drained to shop. I'd given, and they'd taken, always with a smile, always with the assumption that I'd still be there next time. But this time, I wasn't. And the structure they built on top of me? It was starting to buckle. The next unexpected twist came from Travis, a mutual acquaintance of mine and Julian's, a guy I barely tolerated back in college, but who now worked with Vanessa's father in some legal-adjacent capacity. He messaged me on LinkedIn, of all places. Hey, Ava, not trying to be weird, but I was at brunch with Mr. Lang this morning. Just so you know, he's pissed. Said something like, if they humiliate someone who paid for the dinner and then deny them a seat at the table, what does that say about their values? I think you set off a storm. A storm? That was generous. It was a reckoning. From what Travis told me, Mr. Lang had personally contacted the restaurant manager, asked for a copy of the itemized receipt, and saw my name and card on everything. The deposit, the floral order, the cake. That's when the pieces fully fell into place for him. The venue had been suggested by me. The payment had been made by me. The coordination had been done by me. And I'd been treated like a waitlist guest. Word got around fast. The very next day, Julian posted a photo with Vanessa captioned, "Couldn't ask for more." It was gone within hours. By evening, his Instagram account had been scrubbed of every engagement photo. Vanessa's Pinterest wedding board disappeared, and someone told me she had moved back into her old condo. The fallout was real. But the message that floored me didn't come from Julian or Vanessa. It came from Aunt Camilla, my mom's older sister. The one who usually kept her distance, always too composed to weigh in on family squabbles. She called, and that surprised me. Hi, Ava, she said without pleasantries. I heard about the dinner. Of course you did, I said, my voice a little sharper than I meant it to be. I'm not calling to scold you, she replied evenly. I'm calling to say, good. About damn time someone flipped the table. That silenced me. She went on. I've watched them lean on you for years, Ava. I've seen the way they coddled Julian and treated you like the emergency plan. When your mom called me yesterday, panicking, asking if I could talk some sense into you, I told her she didn't need to worry about you losing your mind. She needed to worry about you finally finding your voice. I sat there in silence, clutching the phone tighter than I meant to. For the first time, I felt like someone from inside the family tree had cracked the glass and looked through it. I don't know what happens next, Camila added. But if they want you back in that house, they better learn they can't just keep inviting your wallet and expecting your silence to tag along. I swallowed hard. That night, Julian texted again. Julian. Vanessa's dad just canceled the deposit on the venue. Said we're not aligned in values. Fix this. Can you help me? Julian. Ava, I'm serious. Just talk to him. Explain it wasn't a big deal. Please. I stared at the messages for a long moment. Then I typed a reply. Me. No, just that. One word. And for the first time, it felt like enough. Julian didn't get it. Even after Vanessa called off the engagement, even after her father publicly pulled the plug on the wedding venue and sent a mass email to cancel vendor contracts, he still thought this was fixable, that I was just emotional, that I'd cool down like always. He didn't understand that this wasn't anger. It was clarity. And with clarity came action. That same night, I logged into the shared checking account Julian and I had opened a year prior. It was meant to be temporary, a bridge while he figured things out after his second failed startup. He linked it to his gym membership, his Spotify, even his Venmo. I had left a few thousand in it, more out of habit than purpose. I told myself I'd close it eventually. I finally did. I moved my remaining funds to a new private account. Then I called the bank and shut the joint line down entirely. The next morning, he called me 4 times in a row. I let them ring. Then the 5th call came in. I picked up. His voice was frantic. Ava, what did you do? I didn't answer right away. I had a reservation for tonight with Vanessa. I was going to take her to that steak place she likes. My card bounced. It says the account doesn't exist. I know, I said calmly. I closed it. You what? You can't just... I can, I interrupted. And I did. You told me I wasn't family, remember? You don't get to use my money if I'm not even welcome at the table. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end. Then his voice shifted, weaponized with something slimy and familiar. You're jealous, he snapped. That's what this is. You always hated that I got attention. Now you're throwing a tantrum because Dad didn't toast to you? I laughed. Actually laughed. A dry, hollow laugh that surprised even me. Oh, Julian, I said. You really think this is about a toast? You're bitter, he continued. You've always been bitter. This is why you're alone. That didn't sting like he probably hoped it would. Not anymore. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the fog rolling over the Seattle skyline. You know, I said, you might want to ask Mom to open a new credit card for you. Or maybe Vanessa's dad can teach you what integrity looks like. He sputtered. You think you're better than everyone? No, I said softly. I just finally realized I deserve better from everyone. And then I hung up. I sat there for a while, phone face down, heart not racing, but steady, like something heavy had finally been unhooked from my chest. Later that evening, I received an email. Subject line, I think we need to talk. From Vanessa. I stared at Vanessa's email for a long time before opening it. The subject line, I think we need to talk, felt ominous, like the start of a conversation I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I opened it anyway. It was longer than I expected. Polite, careful, but threaded with something raw beneath the surface. She started by admitting the obvious. I didn't see how you were treated until the moment it blew up. I was so focused on making the night look perfect that I didn't notice how imperfect it actually was. She said her father had been livid, not because of the money, but because of the principle. He said, if they can publicly humiliate someone who paid for and organized the evening, what will they do to you when no one's watching? Vanessa didn't sugarcoat it. She told me Julian tried to lie. Again. He told her I insisted on paying. That I chose to sit alone because I was introverted. That I left early because of a work emergency. That I'd been offended by something minor and overreacted. But Vanessa had doubts. And instead of asking him, she asked the restaurant. I called the manager. He sent me the full breakdown. Your name, your card, the floral requests, the deposit. Then I asked the waiter who handled the bill that night. He told me you didn't eat, didn't drink, and were seated by the service cart. That's when the story Julian gave me started to fall apart completely. And then came the line that hit like a slow, controlled detonation. I ended the engagement last night. I sat back in my chair, the sentence echoing in my mind. She continued, "This wasn't just about dinner. The way he handled everything after, the lies, the blame shifting, the lack of remorse, just exposed things I've been trying to ignore for months. He minimized my concerns just like he minimized yours. He said you were being overly sensitive, but honestly, you were the only one who reacted with any dignity." She ended the message with a paragraph I reread 3 times. I'm not writing this to pit myself against Julian or drag you back into any drama. I just wanted to say, I see it now, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I sat there a long while, phone balanced in my palm, heart oddly still. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't revenge. It was being believed, being seen. Not for what I could give, not for how quietly I could endure, but for how I stood up when it mattered. I didn't reply right away. There was nothing urgent in her words, just the kind of truth that didn't need applause. Over the next week, the family group chat went silent. Not muted, not paused, dead. Mom stopped texting entirely. Dad sent a brief message. "Hope you're well." I didn't answer. Julian tried calling again. Twice. I let them ring out like wind against glass. Hollow. Unwanted. Then I got word from a mutual friend. Julian had moved back in with my parents. Vanessa returned the ring. Mr. Lang issued a formal cancellation of all wedding vendors, sent via email to every guest. Even some of Julian's friends unfollowed him, quietly stepping away. Apparently, a few had been banking on Vanessa's connections for future favors. It all unraveled, and I wasn't sad about it. Because for once, the collapse wasn't falling on me to clean up. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I heard the knock. Not a text, not a phone call, an actual knock. 3 soft taps on the front door of my apartment. When I looked through the peephole, my breath caught. It was my mother. She stood on the porch in a pale cardigan, holding a glass container of lasagna like it was a peace offering wrapped in melted cheese. Her hair was pulled back. No lipstick, eyes puffy. I opened the door just a crack. I didn't say anything. She offered the dish wordlessly. I didn't reach for it. "I just wanted to talk," she said quietly. "No excuses." That part surprised me. I stepped aside. She entered like someone walking through a place filled with ghosts. Sat down at my kitchen table like she had when I was little, back when she helped me with science projects and pretended she understood them. Only this time, there were no polite smiles, no performative concern. Just her, and the weight between us. She cleared her throat. "I owe you an apology." I crossed my arms. "Just one?" Her lips pressed together. "Fair, probably more than one." She exhaled slowly. I didn't see it. Not because it wasn't there, but because I didn't want to see it. Julian takes up a lot of space. And you never asked for any. You just handled things. Quietly. So we started treating you like a safety net. I didn't speak. I wanted her to keep going. "That's the thing about safety nets," I finally said. "No one ever looks at them when they're climbing, only when they're falling." Her eyes shimmered. She looked down at her hands as if they'd aged in the last 2 weeks. "Your father and I, we were wrong. We let him get away with too much. We let him treat you like less. And we didn't step in." I stayed silent. "I know a lasagna and a sorry don't fix years of imbalance," she said. But I just wanted you to know, Diane's EMI sale. I see it now. And that was the first time I'd ever heard my mother take ownership without deflection, without blame, without shrinking it down to, you're just tired or don't take it so personally. I nodded once. Thank you. She stood slowly, left the lasagna on the counter, and walked to the door. She didn't ask me to call Julian. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She just paused before leaving and said, "Take care of yourself, Ava," and closed the door behind her. That was it. Things didn't magically repair after that. But they didn't get worse either. Instead of the group chat, I started getting short, individual texts from Dad, from Mom. Nothing loaded, nothing manipulative, just saw something today that reminded me of you. Hope the new project is going well. Small things, quiet things. And I liked it better that way. They invited me to Thanksgiving. Only if you feel up to it, Mom said. I haven't decided if I'll go. Julian, still living at home. Working part-time at some co-working space he complains about on social media. Last I heard, he was trying to rebuild his brand. He hasn't reached out again, and I'm okay with that. As for me, I started doing the things I used to postpone for later. I booked that trip to Spain I'd canceled years ago. I bought myself a new set of noise-canceling headphones and read every book I could find about boundaries, generational trauma, and emotional inheritance. I even started therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I want to heal in a way that's mine, not in a way that makes other people more comfortable. Because here's what I've learned. Healing doesn't begin with someone else saying sorry. It begins the moment you decide you're no longer available to be hurt in the same way again. So, no, I didn't pay that dinner bill. But I finally cashed in years of silent debt. And for the first time in my life, I'm not sitting next to the trash can. I'm sitting at a table I built, and the view is beautiful from here.